Today's tech news moves fast, but understanding it shouldn't be hard. That's why Snarful Solutions Group brings you Connecting the Dots, where we break down what's happening in tech and why it matters to you. Now, let's dive in with your hosts.
Welcome to Connecting the Dots. I'm Alex.
And I'm Morgan. Good morning. It is Monday, November 24th, 2025, and we are definitely in that final stretch before the holidays.
We sure are. We have some really big stories today that connect some pretty surprising dots between finance, geopolitics, and, of course, the crypto world.
Absolutely. But before we get into all that, let's do a quick check on the day.
Right. Starting with the weather. Nationally, there's a big storm system moving into the southern U.S. We're talking eastern Texas all the way to the lower Mississippi Valley.
Yeah, that's bringing some severe thunderstorms, heavy rain, and, a real risk of flooding.
And up north, it's the opposite story. Heavy snow, really gusty winds hitting the northern Rockies, the plains, and the upper Midwest.
So bundle up if you're up there. Here in Sacramento, a bit closer to home, we've got a dense fog advisory in effect until about 11 a.m., so be careful on the commute.
Okay, let's pivot to the markets. After Friday's close, the picture is, well, it's a bit mixed. The Dow was down, but just slightly.
Yeah, less than 0.25% for the day. The bigger story, I think, is the weekly change. It's a much steeper drop, down almost 1.8%.
And the S&P 500 actually managed a small gain on Friday.
It did, but just like the Dow, its weekly trend was also in the red. So there's definitely some pressure on the broader market.
And then there's Bitcoin. It's continuing a pretty serious slide.
Yeah, it closed around 85,500, down over 1.4% on the day. But that weekly drop is what's really eye-watering, down more than 7%.
Oof. Turbulence is definitely the word for the digital asset space right now.
It is, and that turbulence is really at the center of what we're looking at today.
Before we get to that, though, we want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Old Glory. If you're starting your holiday shopping, and who isn't, Old Glory is an iconic music and sports fan merch store.
They have some genuinely great stuff, especially for those techie friends who can be, let's be honest, impossible to shop for.
Exactly. Just head over to their website, oldglory.com. And if you use the promo code SNARFUL, that's SNARFUL, at checkout, you'll get 15% off your entire purchase.
A great deal. Okay, let's get into it.
All right, let's unpack the Morning Star. We're starting with a story out of European Fintech that involves, well, just a massive number.
A staggering number, really. Our first story is about Revolut. It has just cemented its place as Europe's most valuable startup.
And how valuable are we talking?
Its latest share sale pushed its valuation to $75 billion.
Wow. $75 billion. And what was it, just a year ago? I mean, it was already huge.
It was. It was valued at $45 billion in 2024. So that's a $30 billion leap in 12 months.
So the big question is that number justified? Is it real value or is it just market hype? Fear of missing out.
It's a fair question, but the financials here seem to back it up pretty solidly. This isn't just hype. For 2024, their revenues surged 72%.
To $4 billion.
$4 billion. And this is the crucial part. Their profit before tax grew by 149% to $1.4 billion. When you're posting profits that are accelerating that fast, investors pay attention.
And it's who is investing that really tells the story, right? It's not just the usual private equity firms.
Exactly. You've got the big names like Coatue and Fidelity, of course.
Yeah.
But you also have Inventures.
Which is NVIDIA's venture capital arm.
Right. And Andreessen Horowitz, A16s, their involvement signals something much bigger is happening here.
It points directly to a deep collaboration on artificial intelligence.
It does. This isn't just about being a better digital bank anymore. This is about using cutting-edge AI to build the actual architecture for the future of finance.
So we're talking about things like hyper-efficient fraud detection, really personalized financial products for customers.
All of that. Things that lower costs and bring in customers faster. And it all feeds into their main goal, which is huge. They want to build the first truly global bank.
The goal is 100 million customers in 100 countries. And they're already moving on it with launches in Mexico, Colombia, and soon in India.
And one last thing on this, which I think is a nice touch. They've done 5 employee share sales. So the people actually building this $75 billion company are getting a piece of the pie.
Which is how it should be. Okay, from a story of runaway success, let's pivot to something a lot more complicated.
A real geopolitical contradiction, actually. Let's talk about the surprising return of Bitcoin mining in China.
This one is fascinating because China issued a hard formal ban on all crypto mining back in 2021. They were done with it.
They were supposedly done.
Yeah.
But new data shows they have quietly bounced back to become the world's third largest Bitcoin mining hub.
Third largest, holding an estimated 14% of the global hash rate.
And just a quick reminder, the hash rate is basically the total computing power of the Bitcoin network. It's a measure of both security and energy use. So 14% is a huge piece of that pie.
It is, especially when you consider who the top two are. The U.S. is number one at around 38%, and Russia is second at about 15.5%.
So you add it all up, and those three nations, the U.S., Russia, and China, they now control over 2/3 of the entire global hash rate.
67%. That feels very concentrated.
It's incredibly concentrated. And the reason for China's comeback is, well, it's simple economics.
Cheap electricity.
Just cheap surplus electricity in these energy-rich provinces, places like Xinjiang and Sichuan. They have more power than they can use or transmit, so the local incentive is just to sell it to someone, anyone.
Even if that someone is a supposedly banned Bitcoin miner.
Exactly. It shows that local economic forces can sometimes just steamroll a central government's policy, at least when it comes to a decentralized network.
And there's hard data to back this up, right? It's not just speculation.
Oh, yeah. A major mining rig producer, Canaan, reported that over 30% of its global revenue in 2024 came from China.
Wow. And what was that figure right after the ban?
It was less than 3%. So the miners are back, and they're buying new hardware.
And at the same time, we're seeing some small signs that the official policy might be softening or at least evolving.
Right. Hong Kong has a stablecoin bill coming into effect, and there are reports that Beijing is looking at yuan-backed stablecoins.
Yeah.
So it's a complicated picture.
And all this is happening while the market is in turmoil. Bitcoin's price is way down from its October peak.
Which means miner revenue, there's a metric for it called the hash price, has hit an all-time low. So even with that cheap electricity, it's a tough environment for them.
And that tough environment, that volatility, leads us directly into our third story.
It really does. This is where the market crash slams right into the world of politics and personal fortunes.
We're talking about the crypto market volatility and its impact on the Trump family's assets and how that connects to a very high-profile presidential pardon.
Right. The crypto market shed over $1 trillion recently. That's a massive crash. And it directly hit the Trump family's estimated fortune. It fell from a peak of about $7.7 billion in September.
All the way down to $6.7 billion in November, $1 billion drop.
Mostly from their digital asset holdings. President Trump's stake in TMTG, his media company, dropped by about $800 million.
A Trump-branded meme coin also lost about a quarter of its value.
And a Bitcoin mining venture connected to Eric Trump, it shed about half of its peak value. The market was just brutal.
So in the middle of all this financial turmoil, President Trump issues a pardon for Changpeng Zhao, the founder of Binance, better known as CZ.
That's right. CZ had pleaded guilty to failing to maintain an effective anti-money laundering program. He'd already served nearly 4 months in prison.
And the pardon just wipes that slate clean. The White House defended it, saying it was correcting an overly prosecuted case and ending what they called the Biden administration's war on crypto.
Now, here is where the story gets really interesting. This is where we connect the dots.
There's a perceived overlap, a financial connection between Binance, the company whose founder was just pardoned, and the Trump family's own crypto business ventures.
Yes. Binance is reported to be a key supporter of a venture called World Liberty Financial, which is tied to the Trump family. And lobbying records show that Binance hired a lobbyist who was a friend of Donald Trump Jr.
And what was that lobbyist working on?
The filing specifically mentioned lobbying the White House on executive relief.
Which is basically a synonym for a pardon.
It is. So you can see why this has drawn intense criticism from Democratic senators who are pointing to a potential conflict of interest given the clear financial ties.
So what you have is this perfect storm. Market volatility causing huge personal financial losses for a political family.
Coinciding with a presidential action that benefits a major player in the crypto space, a player who also happens to be financially linked to that same family. It just raises so many questions about the politicization of finance and regulation in this new digital era.
A really complex way to start the week.
It certainly is.
Before we wrap up and give you our final thought, we want to thank another one of our great sponsors. If you're more into hitting the links than tracking the markets, you should know about Skony.
Skony is a premium golf shoe store And their stuff is fantastic.
It really is. And just like with Old Glory, if you head over to their website, scony.com, and use our promo code SNARFL, you'll get 15% off your entire purchase.
Perfect for a holiday gift for the golfer in your life. Okay, so let's do a quick recap.
All right. First, we had Revolut's incredible $75 billion valuation, which seems to be driven by real profits and a serious commitment to using AI.
Then we looked at the big contradiction in China, where Bitcoin mining is making a huge comeback despite an official ban, all thanks to cheap local power.
And finally, we saw how the brutal crypto market crash is directly intersecting with politics, with the Trump family's financial losses and the controversial pardon of Binance's founder, CZ.
Looking at all three of these stories together, there's a really clear theme that emerges, and it's this concentration of control.
Yeah, you see it everywhere. You have 3 nations controlling 2/3 of the global mining power.
Or you have a single political act, that could reshape the future for a massive crypto entity with clear ties to power. And that leaves you, our listener, with a really important question to think about this week.
If governments and powerful individuals can still exert so much control over the infrastructure, the wealth, and the rules of the game in the digital asset space, what does that concentration of power really mean for the original promise of decentralization in the future of finance and technology?
Something to chew on as the week gets going. The real points of control aren't always where you expect them to be.
We're here to help at Snarful, so reach out on our website if you have any more questions.
That's a wrap on today's top stories. Remember, tech doesn't have to be complicated, and we're here to help connect the dots. If you've got questions or want to learn more, visit us at snarful.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.